This is Mike Grell, and you're listening to Warlord Worlds.
Welcome back, and thank you for listening to Warlord Worlds, a fan podcast devoted to the comic creations of writer and artist Mike Grell, including The Warlord, Jon Sable, and Green Arrow. I'm Ruth.
And I'm Darren, and this is a fan podcast. We're not affiliated with Mike Grell, and the opinions expressed are just ours. We do this podcast simply because we enjoy reading and talking about the comics of Mike Grell.
The number of issues covered in each episode varies based on story arcs.
Today we're talking about The Warlord issues 47 through 49 as we build toward the double-length 50th issue. Also, we're covering a 3-part Green Arrow adventure in issues 41 through 43.
If you enjoy the podcast, please check out MikeGrell.com. That's his official site where you'll find all of the latest news, including his convention schedule.
If you're able to see Mike Grell at a convention, pre-orders for convention sketches may be placed through Scott Kress at catskillcomics.com. And if you can't make it to a convention, but would like to get an original drawing, then Scott Kress can help you with that as well. Just make your request at catskillcomics.com.
Scott is a terrific gentleman, and we've really enjoyed getting to know him over the years.
Another great place to keep up with the latest news is the Mike Grell page on Facebook. Longtime fans Gus Sebalius and Jeff Messer do a great job with that site.
Those of you who supported the Kickstarter campaign for The Art of Mike Grell Volume 1 are probably receiving your books right about now.
We received our copy, and the book is absolutely gorgeous, and it also features several mini prints.
We were honored to see a couple of the wonderful commissions that Mike Grell has done for us over the years that were included in the book. That was thrilling.
This was a truly wonderful idea for a book to let fans share the Mike Grell art they've collected over the years. Bravo to Mike, Jeff, Tom, and everyone involved.
We have loved flipping through the book and just marveling at all of the amazing commissions and original art, page after page of beautiful art.
If you missed out on the Kickstarter, look for the upcoming campaign for The Art of Mike Grell Volume 2. That will give you another opportunity to pick up Volume 1 as well. The campaign will be launching soon.
We enjoy giving shout-outs to our friends and sharing listener feedback, so please feel free to write us anytime and join in on the conversations. We'd love to hear your thoughts about any of Mike Grell's titles. I'm always interested in hearing what others think of Mike Grell's stories and art, and it's great to hear how people first discovered his art.
We'll provide our email address and other ways to reach us at the end of the episode.
Warlord Worlds is part of the Rad Adventures podcast network. If you enjoy the show, please consider checking out our other podcasts that are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube.
Xenozoic Xenophiles covers the post-apocalyptic adventure series Xenozoic Tales, featuring Cadillacs and dinosaurs by writer and artist Mark Schultz.
And Trekker Talk is devoted to the adventures of 23rd century bounty hunter Mercy St. Clair from the pages of the sci-fi comic Trekker by writer and artist Ron Randall.
Mike Grell, Mark Schultz, and Ron Randall are our favorite comic creators. Their stories are always filled with adventure and interesting characters, and their art is excellent.
We hope you'll try out our other shows, and we'll be sure to include links to those podcasts in our show notes.
But now it's time to talk about some great Mike Grell comics, right after this promo for another podcast you might enjoy.
According to the latest report from FalsifiedStats.com, there are currently 12 million active comic book podcasts clogging up the internet superhighway, and 2.3 million new comic book podcasts are being created every single day. If you're looking for something a little different, then let me tell you about Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow. Mike travels the globe and visits comic shops along the way, talking to the owners or really just whomever happens to be minding the store that day. And it's through these conversations that you'll meet some wonderful people and learn how comic shops are run in places like Murfreesboro, Illinois, and Liverpool, New South Wales, Australia. So check out Mike's Comic Shop Roadshow, a truly unique comic book podcast among billions of the same old, same old. Find it now on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
I'm Mike, and I approve this message.
The Warlord, number 47, July 1981. Hunter's Moon. Written and illustrated by Mike Grell. Inks, Bob Smith. Colors, Adrienne Roy. Letters, Milt Snappen. Editor, Ross Andrew. Our story opens at Castle Demos, in the dark of the Skatarist Terminator, where Demos' assistant Faldron looks upon Jennifer, the captured daughter of the Warlord Travis Morgan. This scene switches to the Warlord and Shakira continuing their search for Jennifer in the Land of Shadow, where they are surprised to see a bright light in the sky. Shakira has never seen anything like it, but the Warlord has, but he didn't know that Skatarist had a moon. Morgan explains his theory of how the moon might have been formed and theorizes that it might be so small and low in the sky that it is usually hidden from view and only visible at short intervals in the darkness of the Terminator. Morgan explains that this full moon would also be called a hunter's moon, and he wants to take advantage of it to replenish their supplies with fresh meat. However, Shakira is content to take a cat nap by the fire, so Morgan departs alone. Tracking game from a watering hole, Morgan finds his prey and begins to trek back to their camp with fresh meat when he comes upon the dead body of a warrior. As the moon drops below the horizon, Morgan hears fighting in the distance and heads towards the battle. Along the way, he finds more dead warriors, and then in a clearing, he sees a single man with a sword in a fierce battle with several other warriors. Morgan doesn't like the uneven odds and jumps into the fray, and soon he and the swordsman have defeated all the warriors. Judging from the swordsman's clothing, Morgan guesses correctly that he is from the surface world, and he learns his name is Mikola Rostov, and he is the fencing master of Maria Romanova. He learned about Skatarist from Professor Lakely, and traveled 2,000 miles across the ice pack to find the entrance to Skatarist to come in search of Maria. Morgan tells him about the meteorite that opened a time warp, and that Maria and Machiste are now trapped in the past, in a time when wizards ruled Skatarist, and he doesn't know if they will find their way back. The two are then surprised and captured by a large group of warriors with nets who tie them up. But as the moon rises again above the horizon, Mikola transforms into a savage beast, ripping the ropes and single-handedly taking out the group of warriors. When the moon is obscured, he transforms back into a man, and he explains to Morgan that he is a lycanthrope, a werewolf, who had hoped that coming to a world of eternal sunlight like Skatarist would free him from his curse, only to enter the world in the eternally dark land of shadow. He then runs off into the night to distance himself from Morgan before the moon rises again. The stunning cover by Mike Grell features the Warlord in the foreground, with a full moon filling the background. Morgan is staring at a rocky outcrop where a shadowed beast appears ready to pounce. The opening page reminds us of the ongoing story about the search for Morgan's daughter Jennifer, before transitioning the scene with a gorgeous double-page title page of Morgan and Shakira looking up at the nighttime sky, seeing the moon of Skatarist for the first time. The issue is filled with some dynamic fights and wonderful colors that create stunning nighttime scenes. It's neat to meet Mikola Rostov and learn of his connection to Maria, which also gives Mike Grell the opportunity to remind us of another ongoing storyline. However, one twist isn't enough for Iron Mike, and we soon learn this new character is also a werewolf. There were little clues along the way, and an enjoyable feeling of suspense and curiosity about the new character. These all fell nicely into place once we learned of his dangerous secret. This issue is great fun from beginning to end and is filled with some terrific art. Besides the stunning double-page spread, some other favorite art in the issue includes a panel of a wolf howling at the full moon on page 5, and a silhouette of the Warlord in the forest later on that same page. On a side note, I want to share that having heard Mike Grell tell so many wonderful stories at conventions and through interviews over the years, that I now often hear his voice in my head for much of the narration. For example, in this story, I could just hear him saying specific lines like, "with the stealth of a shadow," or "a mournful cry rings out." His writing and storytelling skills are excellent, always drawing me into the story with layers of atmosphere and suspense and action.
The Warlord, number 48, August 1981. Written and illustrated by Mike Grell. Inks Vince Coletta. Colors Adrian Roy. Letters Ben Oda. Editor Ross Andrew. The issue opens up in Shambhala, where the warrior Queen Tara is being updated by Atun, who is telling her what he knows of Morgan's continuing search for his daughter Jennifer in the land of shadow. Tara secures a horse for both of them. As they ride out of the city, she explains that she knows where Morgan will go sooner or later. The story transitions to Morgan and Shakira continuing their travels along the rim of Skataris that is shrouded in twilight. Morgan believes Jennifer would travel along the coast, and soon the two see a village in the distance where a ceremony is in progress. A crowd has gathered where a robed figure appears prepared to sacrifice a woman. Morgan draws his pistol, but Shakira tells him things like this have been going on longer than he can imagine. Nothing he does will change that. Morgan proceeds anyway, and with one shot fells the robed figure, then rides his horse into the city, fighting off all the villagers who oppose him. Morgan then frees the woman and turns to angrily address the crowd. But when his back is turned, the former sacrificial victim knocks him out, cutting his speech short as she calls him a blasphemer who will anger the ice dragon. In the distance, Shakira rolls her eyes at Morgan's folly. She transitions into her cat form and sneaks into the city. As the villagers tie up Morgan to make him the sacrifice to the ice dragon, Shakira finds Morgan's gun and transitions back into her human form, killing several of the villagers and freeing Morgan. The remaining villagers cry out in fear and run into the distance. Morgan and Shakira turn to see the ice dragon approaching from the misty shadows over the ocean. As the two watch, the so-called dragon comes into view. Morgan realizes it is an ancient Viking ship with a dragon figure carved into the front of the vessel. The two soon see that all of the figures on the ship are frozen, thus leading to the legend of the ice dragon. Morgan theorizes that the Vikings probably sailed too far north and froze to death. Over time, their ship found its way into Skataris, where it was caught in a coastal current, returning along the same path periodically, creating the legend. The warlord hurls a large stone into the ocean, changing the direction of the vessel in the hopes of bringing the legend to an end. Meanwhile, back in the dark side of the Terminator, Demos, assistant Faldrin, has left a small box in Jennifer's room. As she relaxes, she doesn't notice the box begins to open on its own. The cover features the warlord standing in the foreground, holding his sword in one hand and his pistol in the other. The background features a lush landscape under the eternal sun of Skataris. The cover also teases that the issue features a special preview introduction of Arak, Son of Thunder, which would become another popular sword and sorcery title from DC. I like that Mike Grell always keeps the reader up to date on other characters and storylines that we may not have visited recently. Just as the previous issue reminded us about Mariah and Mashist, this issue begins with Tara in the land of Shambhala, being updated by Atun, who was traveling with Morgan just a few issues earlier. And I like that Tara knows Morgan well enough to tease that she knows where he will go, and we see her ride off in pursuit. Then the issue ends with a scene featuring Jennifer to remind us she is who Morgan is searching for, and we have an excellent cliffhanger ending to tease the next issue. In between, we get the main story of the issue, which clearly illustrates Morgan's sense of justice and what he feels is right and wrong. We see that he will do everything he can to try to improve the world around him, whether people want that or not. It is both an insightful look at the warlord's personality and also an intriguing story as we wonder whether we will see an ice dragon coming through the mist. And the revelation that the ice dragon is a frozen Viking ship is a great twist. The art is amazing as always. We get a stunning image of Tara standing at a brazier with flames filling much of the page. The image on page 10 of Shakira rolling her eyes after Morgan is knocked out by the woman he thought he was saving is hilarious. It just shows how clearly Mike Grell can convey emotions through his art. And I love seeing Shakira then come to Morgan's rescue. The action and danger really come across with excellent visual storytelling. The images of the mist-covered ocean create a great atmosphere, and the multi-panel reveal of the Viking ship is well executed. Another great issue, leaving the reader wanting to know what happens next.
The Warlord, number 49, September 1981. Something Evil. Written and illustrated by Mike Grell. Inks, Vince Coletta. Colors, Adrian Roy. Letters, John Costanza. Editor, Ross Andrew. Morgan and Shakira are continuing their search for Jennifer along the twilight of the Terminator of Scartaris when they see the remains of a giant castle looming in the darkness. As they approach, Morgan comments that the seemingly abandoned building appears to be older than anything he has seen since coming to Scartaris. Shakira can just barely make out the ancient writing at the doorway, as the carvings have almost faded away, but she can tell the message is a warning: this is the place of the Evil One. As they open the door, they see the remains of a long-dead visitor who was obviously killed in a trap. The two know to proceed carefully, and as they explore further into the castle, they find more ancient corpses of those killed by ingenious traps. Ahead, Morgan and Shakira see glowing jewels lining a wall, and as they carefully step forward, machinery grinds to life, triggering a series of sharp objects to fire from the walls, and they realize not all of the traps have been sprung by earlier visitors. In a central chamber, our heroes find another corpse at an altar. The long-dead visitor appears to have died from a trap while trying to place a crescent moon medallion into a slot on the altar. Morgan slides the medallion into place, and giant doors creep open, revealing a treasure trove of gold and jewels, and towering over the treasure is a giant mummy. Morgan slashes out with his sword, cutting away part of the linen bandages, and dust begins to pour to the ground. Seeing this, the warlord leaps into the air, cutting a large gash across the torso of the giant mummy, and the stench of thousands of years of decay fills the chamber as the mummy collapses to the ground. Shakira is surprised to see Morgan is ready to turn and leave, but he tells her he has no use for the treasure because it is too heavy to carry. Jennifer is still his priority, and the exploration of the castle didn't help him in that quest, so it is time to move on. As our heroes depart, we return to Castle Deimos, where the warlord's daughter Jennifer Morgan is sleeping, and unaware of the figure that has exited the small box left in her room. It is the misshapen remains of the evil Deimos. And now we go back in history to the age of the Wizard Kings, when the world of Scartaris was home to powerful magicians. In the distance, we see the Great Fire Mountain, and in the tunnels that honeycomb throughout that volcano, we see a small twisted creature hunting in the darkness. The creature finds a silvery book and reads an ancient spell, and blinding light erupts from the book. The creature is consumed by fire, and the Evil One is reborn in the flames. The Evil One subjugates Sargon, Fire-Eye, and takes his seat upon the throne of the castle, but Sargon is able to send a bat with a message to Mongo Ironhand calling for help. The gorgeous cover by Mike Grell features a dynamic image of the Warlord and Shakira rushing through the trees in twilight. In this issue, Mike Grell uses a clever technique he's used in the past to tell two parallel stories in the same issue. On most pages of the book, the top two-thirds of each page tells the action-packed story of Morgan and Shakira exploring the ancient castle filled with traps. Meanwhile, the bottom third of most pages tells a parallel story from the time of the Wizard Kings, with a golem-like creature searching the tunnels of the Great Fire Mountain. I also like that each of those panels on the bottom third of the page are framed by a style of ancient runes along the edges of those panels. Very nice. We really love the whole effect of this method of telling two stories. Of course, fans of J.R.R. Tolkien will notice lots of parallels to The Lord of the Rings. Like us, Mike is a fan, and this is a nice way for him to do a nice homage to those great books. The art is as stunning as usual, including the wonderful double-page title page featuring the daunting castle looming in the shadows. The issue also features a leopard in search of food stalking our heroes. Mike Grell draws amazing animals, and that leopard looks like it could leap off the page. Everything is now set up for that upcoming spectacular 50th issue, which we will be discussing next time.
So, Mike, what are you doing? Looks like you're deep in thought.
Paul, I've just been sitting here thinking, do you know how many years you and I have been podcasting together for?
8?
Higher.
8?
Just over 10 years now, Paul. And do you know how many different shows we do these days?
What, 3?
Higher.
3?
No, we actually do 4 different shows. And do you know how many episodes we've done across all 4 of those?
10,000?
Lower.
10,000?
But look, we're doing Waiting for Doom. That's the Doom Patrol related podcast where each episode we talk about our favourite superhero team, the Mighty Doom Patrol.
Oh yeah, and we also do DC OCD, where we talk about DC events, covering every event from Crisis on Infinite Earths up.
Yeah, and we also do The Gary Show, which is generally just you and I talking about anything and everything that comes to mind.
Oh yeah, I remember that one. Yeah, and what's the other one we do?
Dial F for Flanger, which is your pop culture chat show, where you get a different guest in each episode to talk about something pop culture related. How cool is all that?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
So if you want to check out more champagne comedy and sparkling wit like you just heard in this very promo, head over to waitingfordoom.com and you'll find all our awesome shows.
Did you say champagne comedy?
I did.
Lower.
Green Arrow, number 41, December 1990. Hooray for Ollywood. Written by Mike Grell. Artists, Dennis Cowan and Bill Ray. Letters, Steve Haney. Colors, Julia Lacquement. Associate Editor, Katie Main. Editor, Mike Gold. The issue opens with Oliver Queen hiking through the mountains, continuing the journey he began in the previous issue. At the edge of a river, he notices something fall to the ground, and he looks up to see a woman hanging from a tree branch at the top of a waterfall. Suddenly the woman falls and begins to plummet into the rushing water below. Without hesitation, Oliver leaps into the water and pulls the woman to the surface, saying, "I've got you," only to see a hand reach up and remove a wig, followed by a man's voice. Then in the distance, someone yells, "Cut," and Oliver realizes he has interrupted a movie being filmed. While the director is upset the scene was ruined, the stuntman Oliver thought he was rescuing laughs it off and introduces himself as Terry Marsh. He invites Oliver to stay around and to have a drink with him after the day's filming. It turns out the movie is the latest in the popular Jimbo series of adventure films, and Oliver is introduced to the star Jason Maverick. Oliver then learns his wanderings have taken him all the way into Canada, where the movie is being filmed. Oliver notices that Terry Marsh has several bows available for the film. The two share stories about the Errol Flynn Robin Hood movie and their mutual respect for Howard Hill, who did the archery stunts for that classic film. The two do some target practice together, and Terry is so impressed that he gets Oliver hired to do some of the archery stunts for the movie. That evening, at a local bar, the two show off some archery tricks and win a bet. Then a fight breaks out when Terry and another man begin arguing over their English and Irish ancestry and the troubles going on in Belfast and Northern Ireland. When preparing for the next day's filming, Terry discovers that someone has broken into the trailer where the guns were stored for the movie. The police arrive to investigate. A Mountie questions Oliver, saying he knows he has seen him somewhere before. And one of the detectives speculates the weapons are probably already on their way to Belfast for use by the IRA, because there have been other similar thefts like this. The cover features an image of the Green Arrow in full costume, aiming his bow while standing in front of a movie poster for the latest Jimbo film. The opening sequence is nicely done, with gorgeous scenery and a dynamic image of the woman dangling above a waterfall. The reveal that it is really a stuntman is handled quite funny, and it's neat to see all of the hints at this being one of the Rambo movies that were so popular at the time. The camaraderie between Oliver and Terry Marsh is handled naturally. I really enjoyed their shared stories about Howard Hill, and I love the way Mike Grell works references to him into his Green Arrow series periodically. The possible connection to the IRA and the troubles in Northern Ireland was prominently in the news at this period of time, so this story was definitely relevant at the time it was originally published. The art is great throughout the story. The mountainous terrain is filled with trees and the skies are beautiful. In addition to the opening scenes mentioned earlier, the characters look great, and the double-page spread of the bar fight is filled with a montage of dynamic images and great colors.
Green Arrow number 42, January 1991. Fall Guy. Writer Mike Grell. Artist Dennis Cowan and Bill Ray. Letters Steve Haney. Colors Julia Lacament. Associate Editor Katie Main. Editor Mike Gold. The issue opens with another scene from the Jimbo movie, and we see the director is showing the film to the cast and crew as well as the detectives and Mounties investigating the theft of the weapons from the previous issue. The lead investigator still believes the weapons were stolen for use by the IRA. Stunt coordinator Terry Marsh explains it will take a few days for the weapons to be adjusted so they can use real bullets because he had modified all of them to use blanks. The lead investigator also makes it clear that Oliver Queen is his number one suspect as he brandishes a newspaper from when Oliver was accused of terrorism. The Mountie who had first recognized Oliver seems more reasonable, and he tells Oliver about Tommy O'Connor, who is an IRA operative known to work in the area. He has apparently been active for more than 50 years, meaning he must now be in his 70s. Oliver and Terry meet at the bar again for another night of drinking, and Oliver tells him about being set up by the government to plant an explosive device that he was told was a transmitter. And even though he was cleared of all charges, many people choose only to remember the headlines describing him as a traitor and terrorist. As the two seem to stumble from the bar from their night of drinking, it quickly becomes obvious that neither is as intoxicated as the other thought. Oliver points out that he has noticed that Terry raises his glass a lot, but doesn't actually drink much. As Terry becomes suspicious of Oliver's words, Oliver kicks open the crate Terry is hauling to reveal the stolen weapons. It turns out that Terry is the grandson of Tommy O'Connor and has taken up his cause. While his father was English, as he claimed, his mother was Irish and the daughter of an IRA leader, and his father humiliated his mother in public and abandoned them when he was a child. The two have a standoff, with Terry aiming a pistol and Oliver aiming his bow. But Oliver can't bring himself to shoot, and Terry drives off with the weapons. The cover features an image of Oliver aiming an arrow at a shadowed figure on a film set. I love the first page, which features the sprockets used to guide film through a projector along the sides of the page to convey we're seeing a scene from the movie. I also like the title Fall Guy, which has a nice double meaning. Besides the connection to Oliver being used as a fall guy by the government, The Fall Guy was the title of a TV series from the time about a stuntman. And of course, that TV series was recently remade as a big-budget movie with Ryan Gosling. We often get nods to the Robin Hood legend in Mike Grell's Green Arrow. I particularly like that this issue also included a reference to the Scarlet Pimpernel, who is another swashbuckling hero whose stories we enjoy. As Green Arrow fans, it's frustrating to see the injustice Oliver Queen faces, but that aspect of the story is so realistic because we have all seen examples of this in real life. I like the reveal that Oliver was not as intoxicated as it seemed and instead was paying close attention to what was really going on, though the reveal that his new friend was the culprit was sad. For the art, I really enjoyed the opening sequence from the movie. The art is nice and moody. It was fun to see the storyboards for the film being shared as well. Storyboards are much like panels in a comic, used to visually convey the story, action, and camera angles to plan a movie. There are a lot of nice behind-the-scenes references to filmmaking in this story that I really appreciated, including aspects of stunt work. Several of the pages in this comic have background colors behind the panels that help frame the art and add a nice effect. The art in the final section of the issue helps build the tension between Oliver and Terry, and the panel of the two of them facing off while bathed in headlights from a truck is striking.
Green Arrow number 43, February 1991. Legends of Stupid Heroes. Writer Mike Grell. Pencils Dennis Cowan. Inks Bill Ray. Letters Steve Haney. Colors Julia Lacament. Associate Editor Katie Main. Editor Mike Gold. The final part of our story opens with the director listing the many things that have gone wrong with the movie that now have them behind schedule and over budget. But the star, Jason Maverick, tells him not to worry, because they could use all of this as the plot for the next Jimbo movie. Meanwhile, Oliver is once again being questioned by the lead investigator, who chastises him for allowing Terry Marsh, aka Tommy O'Connor, to escape. Oliver feels the two of them are alike, but with different ideologies, and he believes they are friends. But the investigator begins to lay out attack after attack that has been attributed to Tommy O'Connor during the 20 years that Terry Marsh has assumed that mantle. Oliver stares at the photos of the many tragedies and considers the lives that have been lost, including an attack where an innocent boy was given a bicycle as a gift that was filled with plastic explosives that killed many at an army checkpoint. Oliver realizes that whether or not Terry is a friend, he must stop the next attack if he can. Oliver travels to Belfast, where he begins investigating and making sure he lets anyone and everyone know who he is searching for. Then late one night, he gets a phone call from Terry, telling him to go home, but he has no plans to do that. Later, a huge celebration is being held to welcome Prince Charles and Lady Diana. Crowds have gathered, bands are playing, people are cheering, and a boy carrying flowers is riding a bicycle toward the prince and princess. Inside a dark room, Terry reaches for a switch on a transmitter, but Oliver is there in the shadows, with his bow drawn and an arrow aimed at Terry. Terry wants to know how he found him, and Oliver explains he knew he would use a special event for his last hurrah. Oliver tells Terry that only one person will die that day. Terry throws a hidden knife as he reaches for the switch on the transmitter, and Oliver lets his arrow fly at the same moment. Outside, the boy stops his bicycle in front of the prince and princess and hands the flowers to Lady Diana, and then he rides away safely. As he circles the corner, Oliver stops him and asks about the bike, and the boy explains a man gave him the bicycle for free if he would take flowers to the princess. Oliver offers the boy a large handful of money for the bike. As he walks away to dispose of it safely, we see blood dripping down his arm onto the bicycle. The cover features the Green Arrow in full costume as a shadowed figure on a bicycle races toward him in this very exciting final issue of the three-part story. Mike Grell gives us a lighthearted title for this issue that is obviously a tip of his hat to the Legion of Superheroes comics, and of course we all know he had a nice long run on that title, but that is one of the few moments of humor we get in this somber ending to our tale. The internal conflict Oliver feels is clearly conveyed both in the dialogue and in the art of the issue. You can tell he feels Terry as a friend. Oliver can understand the goals he wants to achieve, but the methods are not something that the Green Arrow can accept. The tension in the last half of the issue is excellently handled and brings the story arc to a satisfying conclusion. However, while Oliver may have won the duel, he did not escape unharmed, as we see in the final panel. This is a difficult story, and Mike Grell never shies away from difficult stories. We both remember when reports of the troubles in Northern Ireland were a regular part of daily newscasts. We also have a good friend who was born and raised in Belfast and still lives there, so we have heard first-hand accounts of these types of troubles from him. We're happy things are very different there now, and we've had wonderful and safe visits to Belfast and Northern Ireland, where we find the people to be loving, kind, and friendly. Next up is listener feedback, when we share emails and other messages we've received since last time.
We appreciate every comment and want to sincerely thank everyone who wrote in or got in touch through social media.
Mike Grell does excellent covers for his comics, and we usually select a few from the ones we cover in the episode to go along with our social media posts, and several people let us know they love the covers we chose for the previous episode.
Bear Wolf called the Green Arrow cover from issue number 40 one of the best ever.
And Jim Carlson let us know that same issue has one of his all-time favorite Green Arrow covers as well. That's the cover that features a beautiful painting of stalking wolf in full traditional headdress. It is a truly stunning image.
Scott Bechtold was excited to see the cover for John Sable issue number 33 by Mike Grell and Sergio Aragones. It is the cover to the wonderfully fun issue they collaborated on that has leprechauns walking by John Sable while he is working at his desk.
Fantastic Comic Fan promoted our episode on social media and said, "I do miss John Sable, one of my faves." Yes, ours too.
Simon Barre Brisbois also promoted our show, saying, if you're a fan of the 1970s and 1980s comics, this podcast is an excellent listen around Mike Grell's work. Thank you so much, Simon. You are always so supportive.
And Clinton Robeson at Coffee and Comics thanked us for including him in a shout-out in our last episode.
Paul Hicks sent us a message to share that the second issue of Frontiersman from Image Comics has a back matter text piece all about Mike Grell. We really appreciated learning about that. Very cool. Thank you, Paul.
We'll wrap up this section with a kind note from Professor Allen, who wrote to say, "It is always good to have a new Warlord Worlds episode. You two do an excellent job summarizing the stories and adding a few well-placed sound effects." Also, Allen went on to say, "One of my all-time favorite issues of any comic is the Warlord number 50, which really wraps up that entire first epic storyline. It's exciting to hear the build-up as you are getting closer to that milestone. And of course," said Allen, "that's a great issue of John Sable as well. Excellent coverage of some excellent stories. Keep up the good work."
Thank you, Professor Allen, for those very kind words, and we hope you enjoy our coverage of the Warlord number 50 in our next episode.
Next, we want to extend our thanks to everyone who supported us on social media. These are people who promoted our last episode and shared comments.
If we miss a name, let us know and we'll include it next time. And please do forgive us if we mispronounce your name. If that happens, just let us know and we'll be happy to correct that next time as well.
Alan Wright, Bear Wolf, Bill Lynn, Brian Mulvey, Chad Pickett, Chris at BTO and Batbooks, Clinton Robeson, Comics in the Golden Age, Cullen Stapleton, Daniel Garand, DC in the 80s, Derek W.C., Dr. G. Man of Nerdology, Ed and Terry Moore, Eric Steiner, Eric Justin, Fantastic Comic Fan, Felix Rodriguez, Filippo Marzo, Gary Woolard, Jeff Mullins, Jerry Green, J. David Weeder, Jeff and Rick Presents, Jeff Messer, Jim Carlson, John Baker,
Ken Solo, Kirk Spencer, Lori Sutton, Leslie Trigg, Longbox Crusade Podcast, Luke Giaconetti, Mark Woodward, Pat Sampson, Paul Hicks, Paul Spataro, Professor Allen, Randy Carter, Robert Wilson, Ron and Lynn Randall, Ron Weaver, Scott Bechtold, Scott Eos Weldon, Sean Garand, Simon Barre Brisbois, Siskoid, Tim Price, Vic Sage, Warren Montgomery, and Wendy Friedman.
Thank you again, everyone. We really appreciate all of your support.
You like cheap comic books, right? Well, I'm Professor Allen, and I talk about cheap comic books on the Quarterbin Podcast. In every episode, I'll dissect a single comic from my collection, as long as I paid no more than 25 cents for the issue. Forget about $4 new comics that you can read in 4 minutes, or crossover events that can cost $100 to collect. Join me in the Quarterbin, where even bad comics are a bargain, and good ones are a steal. The Quarterbin Podcast is part of the Relatively Geeky Podcast Network. Visit us at relativelygeekypodcast.blogspot.com or search Relatively Geeky or Quarterbin Podcast in iTunes. I guarantee it'll be worth every penny.
Before we go, we want to provide our contact information.
If you want to contact us directly or have something you would like to have read on the show, please send an email to warlordworlds@gmail.com.
You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky as Warlord Worlds, and you can visit our website at warlordworlds.com for links to all of our social media pages.
You can listen to the show through Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, and most other podcast apps. And all of our Mike Grell themed episodes are always available at warlordworlds.com.
You can also find the show on YouTube as part of the Rad Adventures Network. That's RAD, R-A-D, which is short for Ruth and Darren.
On the Rad Adventures YouTube channel and at radadventuresnetwork.com, you'll find all of the episodes of all of our podcasts, including Warlord Worlds, as well as Trekker Talk about 23rd Century Bounty Hunter Mercy St. Clair by Ron Randall, and Xenozoic Xenophiles about the Cadillacs and Dinosaurs series Xenozoic Tales by Mark Schultz.
If you like the show, please consider leaving a review. Every review helps the podcast be more likely to show up in search results.
And on YouTube, we hope you'll subscribe to the channel and give us some likes on the videos.
Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you will come back next time for another new episode of Warlord Worlds.
Warlord Worlds is a proud member of the Comics Podcast Network. For more information, visit comicspodcast.com. We are not affiliated with DC Comics or Mike Grell. The views expressed on the show are solely ours. Music is taken from the album Royalty-Free Instrumental Music for Movies and Websites. We make no money from this podcast, and no copyright infringement is intended.